What's up, Jets fans? Welcome to the latest edition of Jets Latest, where you get the latest on the Jets, Jets. I'm your host, the spitting statistician, Dane Martinez, and today we have the 2025 New York Jets regular season schedule has been officially released, and we are going to go through it. We're going to tell you the things that I like about it, the things that I don't like about it, and we'll talk a little bit about kind of some of the coaching standards that were going on at rookie minicamp recently. But let's get it going. Let's talk about the 2025 schedule, which I told you I thought was good before it was officially released because of the lack of travel outside of London. Of course, they don't go far west. And I told you that the NFC South was pretty much the best NFC division to play. So let's look at it right here. First of all, let's start off with the opener right away out the gate at home against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So that's obviously a revenge game potentially for Justin Fields and maybe the Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback. Maybe the NFL believes that Aaron Rodgers will be a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's see if he lasts more than 4 plays in his first year in Pittsburgh. But that's an interesting revenge game. I think also of note, week 6, we do in fact have the London game as a home game against the Denver Broncos. Our bye week, interestingly enough, is week 9. Not directly after the London game. A lot of teams, you get the option. Teams usually opt to have their bye week right after the international game, but the Jets do not. They instead will go ahead and right after the London game, they will come home for what could be a softer matchup against the Carolina Panthers. I also took note of the primetime games. There's only 2 primetime games on the schedule, and they are both road divisional games, right? At Miami, week 4 for Monday Night Football, at New England, week 11 for Thursday Night Football. I mean, listen, all of the road division games for the Jets this year are tough. There's prime time, which is always tough as the road team, and then week 18 at the very end at Buffalo in what will probably be cold and snowy, but I digress. Speaking of road trips, they only have 3 back-to-back road trips, all right? Weeks 3 and 4 in Miami and Tampa, weeks 11 and 12, New England, and then a long break because of the Thursday night football game, then to Baltimore, which is obviously one of our toughest pieces of the schedule at Baltimore, and then weeks 15 and 16 kind of down south against the Jaguars and the New Orleans Saints, okay? Those are kind of the things that I look for, the road games, the bye weeks, the prime time. But let me give you some of my initial takeaways from a qualitative standpoint, right? First off, is we got a tough start, okay? Weeks 1, 2, and 3 are all against 2024 playoff teams in the Steelers, then the Bills, clearly, and the Tampa Bay Bucks on the road is not going to be easy. However, that's 3 of the 6 playoff teams they face all season long. Obviously, the 2 against the Bills, right? But then outside of that, there's just the Denver game, which is in London and kind of an odd thing, and that Baltimore game. There are only 6 games against playoff teams from last year, and only 2 from weeks 4 all the way through week 17. So there is definitely some softer parts of the schedule and chances for the Jets to get rolling. I mentioned that soft part. The finish, I think, is good. I think there are a lot of teams that are very beatable. 5 of the last 6 opponents are against teams that were under 500 in 2024. Falcons, Dolphins, the Jags, the Saints, and the Patriots. Only that finishing finale against the Bills is really a playoff team in that last 6 games. I also think it's important that always when teams have to go down to Miami in September when it is really hot, Miami gets a little bit of an advantage at home middle of the season. Everyone talks about how, when you go to cold weather things late in the season, how that cold weather team has an advantage. The Dolphins always pull an upset down south in September when it is absolutely sticky and hot. So I think it's actually a good thing that while they do have the road game in Miami in September, it's Monday Night Football, right? So it's not going to be as baking as a 1 o'clock start would be. I actually think that's a good thing. I like that there are no 3-game road trips. We never in this season have to go back to back to back on the road. Coaches look at that, and if you talk to coaches, they say that's one of the first things they look at and hope to avoid. A few teams each year always have to do that. The Jets are not one of them. And as I mentioned in yesterday's episode of Jets Latest, we do not fly further west than Cincinnati. Okay, I mean, we do not have to go to the Pacific time zone. We do not have to do that at all. Obviously, the London game is a big trip, but outside of that, we stay relatively close to home. I also like, there is a trip to New Orleans, right? But that's in a dome. So I don't care what the weather's going to be like. And it's not that far. That's as far as we go, okay? And then 13 of the 17 games are 1 o'clock Eastern kickoffs, okay? None are in that 4 o'clock window. Now, we could get flexed out for some. There's the 13 1 o'clock starts, the 2 prime time, and the 1 London game. That makes 16. And then week 18 at Buffalo, the finale of the season, is still to be determined, right? So those are some of the things I was looking at in the schedule. I actually think it winds up good. In tomorrow's episode, we'll kind of take it chunk by chunk, quarter by quarter. And outside of what I think is a tough start, weeks 1, 2, and 3, Steelers, Bills, and Bucks. If we can get out of that, 1 and 2, 2 and 1, something like that, it kind of does open up for the Jets. It truly does. And when I look at, stretches where you got the Panthers on this schedule, the Browns on this schedule, and that finale, Atlanta, Jacksonville, New Orleans, Indy, Miami at home. That is a nice stretch to finish out the season. So if they are in contention, if they are still developing and improving, I think that it is a good overall schedule, except for that very tough stretch at the beginning. Speaking of developing and improving, we had rookie minicamp recently, right? And I got to tell you, we've been talking about Aaron Glenn, this new regime, and he's been talking about kind of the development, the coaching. Can people be coached, that he's going to get the best out of players? Again, something we saw in Detroit, right, with Dan Campbell as they turned around the Lions. And I got to tell you something, these rookies, there's a lot of them were flashing, and we'll talk about that over the next couple of days here on Jets Latest. But I also think that they are receptive to the coaching. And one of the things that we're hearing is this, I believe, kind of a balance of what Aaron Glenn is as a coach. I think you get a mix of both, kind of like the players want to play for him. He's a player's coach. They kind of admire and like him, and also appreciate kind of tough coaching, development, the expectation and vision of what is being built, the standard, if you will. Listen to what 2 of the rookies who were there at rookie camp had to say about being coached by Aaron Glenn. First, we'll have Malachi Moore, remember, 2-time captain at Alabama, says, quote, "They're real demanding when it comes to teaching. That's one thing I can appreciate. Every great player needs to be coached. For them to hound us on the standard, I love it. As a rookie, I couldn't think of a better coaching staff to come into." Then there's also A.Z. Thomas, right, who says, "I love him," talking about Glenn. "He's serious, he's about business, and he loves defense. I'm a physical cornerback. I'm going to smother you. I'm going to lock down my side of the field." Interestingly enough, these are 2 defensive backs now being coached by a head coach, previous NFL defensive back in the NFL. But you heard that all over the place at rookie minicamp, this idea that the teaching, the coaching is something that is going to happen, even down to small things like competition that they were doing about like in the weight room and in their drills. It is definitely different than the older regime that was here previously. And I think you're starting to see that when the team comes together, that development, that building, that standard and vision. We've continued to talk about it, and it looked like it was still there when these rookies came together. Obviously, one of the big time rookies is Armand Membu. But one thing I thought was interesting is Armand Membu had something to say about his college quarterback. Remember, as an undrafted free agent, we signed Brady Cook out of Missouri, right? Who I actually think has a chance to really beat out Dane Martinez and be a quarterback 3 on this roster. And I think it's no coincidence that Brady Cook had 47 starts for Missouri, was another 2-time captain, and 38 of those 47 games where he started had Armand Membu as his right tackle. This kind of family, comfortable building feel. We've talked about it for Justin Fields, the Ohio State guys, even a guy like Josh Myers as his backup center, right? I think that's happening there, keeping Membu comfortable, and could be beneficial to Brady Cook. Listen to what Membu had to say about Brady Cook. He goes, "Brady Cook is a leader and a very, very tough dude. If you watch the Auburn game last year, he went to the hospital mid-game and came back and won it for us. So that just shows you the type of character and leader that he is. When he texted me, I was super happy." All right, so, and he's referencing a game where he against Auburn, he went to the hospital mid-game. He was knocked out, came back, and got a victory for the Tigers. And listen, as an undrafted free agent, I think Brady Cook is going to be QB3. I think he's going to make this roster. I talked about it last week. I put it in my 53-man projection. I mean, he threw for over 9,000 yards and 50 touchdowns at Missouri. But the other thing is, he is also an athlete, a dual threat. He ran for over 1,250 yards and 21 touchdowns at Missouri in his 5 years as a starter. At the Combine, he tested absolutely incredibly from an athletic standpoint. He ran a 4.62 40, 88th percentile. And what they call the relative athletic score, he scored a 9.71, ranking 30th out of 993 quarterbacks that have been evaluated in this way over since 1987. All right, over the last 35 plus years. And again, two-time captain, leadership, toughness, right? Those characteristics we keep on hearing about from this new regime, what they are looking for to become a new member of the green and white, to be a Jet these days. And I think that is also very important. And you saw Armand Membu having something to say about that as well. Now, we know Membu is the prize draft pick, right? But I think building that family developmental feel with these attributes are so important. So that'll do it for this episode of Jets Latest. But remember, the schedule is released and we'll go into it deeper throughout the rest of the week. But outside of that tough start with the first 3 weeks against playoff teams, those are 3 of the 6 times they will play a playoff team all year long. The 4th is not until week 18 in Buffalo. The 5th is a weird sitting in London against Denver. And then there is what should be a very tough matchup on the road at Baltimore in week 12. But the benefit there is they play Thursday night football the week before at the Patriots, right? So they have a whole week and a half to rest up for that. The bye week is week 9. We will talk about the schedule in chunks of games on tomorrow's edition of Jets Latest and see where the tough spots are, where the easy spots are, and how I believe that if we get through that first few games, the Jets can seriously make a run this season if the building goes correct. But like I said, watch this video, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tell a Jets fan friend to tell a Jets fan friend, okay? Because it's an exciting time for the green and white. We are certainly building. And if you want to have more from me, the spitting statistician Dane Martinez, remember, I am the host of the FTN Fantasy Show over on SiriusXM Channel 87, where we do more than talk just Jets. We talk football, fantasy baseball, the NBA playoffs, which are going on right now, NHL playoffs. It doesn't matter. FTN is a great site, give you so many kind of tools and data, a Discord, content to help you win your leagues and win that cash. But that'll do it for this episode of Jets Latest. We will be back talking more about the schedule and more about what we learned in rookie minicamp tomorrow right here on Jets Latest. Hit me up in the comments on Twitter. I love engaging with you fans of the green and white. But this will be the end of this episode of the Jets Latest. We'll see you tomorrow, everybody.